Did you like it? So it's been 11 hours playing.
Welcome, dear readers, to Cover My Ass, where baffling books are reviewed but not read by yours truly. My name is Kaki.
And I'm Kay, and remember, we only judge a book by its cover.
And we find ourselves once more amid the towering stacks of your library, the stacks, by the way, which are shaking back and forth under the influence of really unseasonable wind.
Yes.
Have you noticed that?
It is a bit windy nowadays. I think there's something wrong with the roofs. I mean, there's like the...
Have they maybe blown off? I mean, there seems to be an awful lot of like cloud formation up there.
No, I guess that might be one of the small temporal weather fronts we occasionally get moving here through the library.
Is that a thing? I haven't seen them yet.
Well, you've not been paying attention then.
No,
it was foggy the other day,
haven't.
remember? So that was one of the weather fronts.
It was what?
It was foggy the other day.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
That was horribly mysterious.
We get weather
creepy.
moving through the library. It's like it's big enough to have its own weather system.
Oh, that's so cool.
You got the daylight windows upstairs, letting light in occasionally, and I think there might be some leakage up there. We might have to send some raccoons up there to see if they can fix it up. And
oh, that's such a cute idea! And the little harnesses and the OSHA-mandated safety equipment.
Little hard hat.
Absolutely precious.
Can you just imagine a raccoon wearing one of those crotch harnesses that they use for mountaineering and safe climbing? That would just look...
There was Guardians of the Galaxy, and
I suppose, yes.
Like that's kind of exactly the look that you're sort of talking about there, except he's having more guns,
rappelling down with big guns. Let's not give them any ideas, shall we? It's like...
No, but hey, speaking of guns, what do we have in store for our readers this week?
Wow, that's a segue award something. Well,
thank you.
Well,
yeah, it kind of is, because if you look down at your podcasting device,
I suppose, right? Yes.
Right now, you should be seeing the cover of today's book, and there's a couple of guns on there, aren't there?
There is. It's by David Alexander Smith. It's called In the Cube, a novel of future Boston.
I like that it says that it's a novel about future. But I like books that say what they're about. There's
the Webster's Dictionary. And
yes, that's certainly a very good example. But I mean, how many books do you know that have like the subtitle a novel?
Yes.
The Algebraist, a novel.
Oh.
Yes, I knew that.
Is that maybe
I knew that.
Maybe to make it that it's not like part one of a series, or I mean, what else could...
Maybe Future Boston is a whole series.
I suppose, yes.
Sort of fancifully imagining that.
I think it's more of a thing where they like put a little bit of the back blurb on the front. Speaking of back blurb...
yeah! Oh,
and Segway Award.
Segway Award goes back to you.
Right. Unexpectedly rising out of the murky Boston harbour, the mysterious cube becomes a fixture of the city, and freelancing exterminator Zoe Loggist and her trusty muskbat 621 try to claim squatters' rights before alien relations are established, and they're willing to go to any lengths to keep the Port Authority at bay.
Yes, and if you look down at your podcasting device, you should be seeing the cover of today's book, and otherwise you can go to covermyasscast.com and look for episode 64, or you can look on Twitter if you're listening to this in the same week that it's coming out. We're Cover My Asscast there, and you can also check the show notes for an image and a link, because it's a doozy. Like, there's a huge fuck-off cube jutting out of the...
It's like literally what it says. It's like a cube which is coming up out of the water, and what I assume is Zoe and her muskbat.
Both pointing guns at the viewer.
Yes. If you look at 621's claws, like, how does it work? Like, he's got a huge thumb claw, but he's got an even huger pinky claw.
I know. Well, I guess the rest are sort of curled around the trigger guard, or in the
if you look
at
the other hand, you can see that they're also big, but it looks like that pinky claw is almost bigger than...
Well, okay, so that's 621, and the claws are really out of control, but I think that's due to Zoe Loggist, and what a lovely name that is, isn't it?
It's a bit of an obvious shoe-in, but yeah.
Aside from being a freelance exterminator, that's an offshoot of her original career in reverse zoology, which, I thought it was a very interesting science where instead of like studying nature and describing all of its marvels, you decide what nature should be, and you proscribe. So. Yes, exactly. So that's why she wound up with Experiment 621.
Careful, we don't want Disney suing us.
A muskbat.
No, that's right. It's Experiment 61, isn't it?
What, you mean Stitch from Lilo and Stitch?
No, 626, sorry. That's close. Yeah, it's 626.
Okay, so I think we're
safe.
Yeah. I think we're safe.
Like, that's not an E number, is it? I like the idea that, like, even though he's called a muskbat, he looks more owlish to me here.
Yeah, he doesn't really have like much in the way of wings.
I think there are wings. Oh no, that's her hair.
Yeah,
that's
right. That's her lovely auburn hair. That's the same color as. But then, like, his perch is really weird, and he's got these sort of flippers,
more like raccoon Pete's.
but they're huge. They're wrapped all over their shoulder.
Yeah, they're long-toed, got claws on his hind feet, but not quite as big as in the front. Then, of course, we've got the beaver teeth, or muskrat teeth, I suppose.
He's got the lovely little overbite. I think the bat part is mostly because he's got Nosferatu ears.
Is that what they're called?
He's got little Nosferatu, little pointy, like the Dread Vampire. Now, of course, her muskbat is not her first experiment. He's experiment 626, so we are in
21.
620. I did it again there, didn't I? Oh, I wonder how many more times I can make a horrible mistake like that before Disney actually fucking sues us.
As long as we don't sing any Disney tunes, I think we're going to be fine.
Oh, that's great. We're introduced to some of her previous exploits as a reverse zoologist. Experiment 42, Rhinoceros, which is not... I mean, it's kind of the worst of both worlds.
It required frequent watering, and it didn't really go anywhere.
No, and it was still extremely dangerous and kind of horny.
Took the words right out of my mouth there.
A little bit more successful, but also still quite dangerous, was the hyena, so half tiger and half hyena.
Yeah, I can see how those would be dangerous. I mean, a tiger with a biting force of a hyena would be like...
One is a hunter, and the other one is a
scavenger.
Is a scavenger, exactly. And so it mostly
eats everything.
Its own leftovers.
Yeah.
And it was just, like, as soon as it killed something, it was unhappy because it was too fresh, and then it left it a while, and then it was unhappy because it was too old. And so it was just,
That's what refrigeration was invented for, man.
I think this is where Zoe turned into a bit of an exterminator, because she kept having to get rid of her own experiments and hunting them
is
down.
a good way to get a good business model going. Like, first you create a problem, and then you sell the solution to the problem.
Exactly.
And as long as nobody knows that you're actually the source of these problems.
Yeah. And so the next one that she introduced actually became a bit of a fad. It was the Chihuahua.
Yeah,
so
I can see how those would be like
adorable little cheetahs,
hyperactive, like zipping all around the place,
and just chirping and purring. And you can have one on your lap if you can manage it.
If you can manage to get it to sit still for long enough, then yeah.
You know, Chihuahuas actually take very well to training. My sister-in-law's ex, which is a few steps removed, I think, was a trainer of police dogs, and when they got a Chihuahua, like, he applied his police dog training. And, like, the little animal was incredibly smart. He could take him into a new place, like my mother-in-law's home, and, like, set it down and just, with his finger, point and draw an imaginary line and say, that's the red line, and they would not...
Cross it.
Yeah, they would not cross it. They would stand there and whine and... Oh, I made a horrible ass of myself at one point, because Dickie, the little pup, was called, and she was great, and she was very independent, like Chihuahuas usually are, and I picked her up and played with her, and she was having a great time.
This is going.
And then I was called away. Oh, Kaki, can you come over here? Yeah, no problem. No, I'm used to cats, so I just fucking dropped it.
Wait, it's dog, not cat.
No, exactly. and the little, she was just. Yeah, I mean, she wasn't hurt, but she'd never been, like, fucking dropped from arm height before.
No, I get that. And it's like, I heard someone talk about the same issue earlier with a dog as well, and it's like, because, like, why? It's like, don't you put cats down? It's like, no. If you try to put a cat down, it tries to get off itself and it turns into a mess and everybody's unhappy. You kind of just like gently let them go and they'll sort themselves out. Yeah, whereas dogs, you have to kind of like put them down and like make sure that they're on their feet.
Paws on the ground, and like, no, that's the worst. Because what goes through a cat's mind when you try to put them down? Oh no, he's going to crash me.
I don't know. I think it's like, that's where I want to go, and I'm going to get there on my own because I'm a strong, independent cat.
Down.
Yeah,
yes,
exactly.
Except you only weigh nothing, and we keep insisting on picking you up and kissing you.
And that's why they're so pissy. Yes.
So they were actually a bit of the Chihuahuas were actually a bit of a windfall for Zoe Loggist.
Yes.
Like they were very, very popular. Unfortunately, then they started breeding on their own, and you got Chihuahua farms. And she wasn't like, this is her thing. She's just a woman struggling in Boston to make it independently and just make a little money on the side, right?
I mean, that's what you're going. Like, she studied at the famous university. She unfortunately...
Oh, which university was that?
One of the two.
Okay. So one of us has done some research about Boston.
But she made the classic mistake of walking across the seal, and that's like...
You're going to have to explain that to
me.
So hopefully a few of our listeners...
I think it's in one of the plazas at the university. There's this big seal. It's not actually a seal. The shield, coat of arms, I think it's officially called.
So it's like a sigil emblazoned on the plaza, on the ground.
Yes, and the myth is that if you walk across it, you will not graduate.
Ooh.
And
Oh, wow.
some people have clearly defied this, but that's a superstition.
Well, I mean, seals are pretty fierce creatures. Like, if you step on one, no, think about it. Also, why do they have a live seal?
That would be the seal of disapproval. Maybe Zoe got got onto that as well.
I'm sure that was one of her experiments. Yes, the seal of disapproval. Not quite as popular or as effective as her ocelotter, who is the reason that nobody swims in the Bay of Boston anymore.
Yes, the creature of Pleasure Bay.
Yeah. I mean, they are adorable, but if you get into the water with them, they're
a bit rapey.
Whoa!
Oh,
is that?
Well, it's called Pleasure Bay for a reason. It's just not.
I mean, that is the thing about otters, right? They
are a bit rapey.
They're these really cool creatures, and you see them playing. Oh, the boyfriend and I went to Lisbon, and in Lisbon they have a beautiful oceanarium there that is built around a gigantic tank, like so large, the entire building, multiple floors are built around it. So you go up these spiraling steps, and you encounter multiple different biospheres in this same continuous tank, which is fucking great.
Yeah.
And it has a connection to the outside, and the outside they have penguins, but it's and otters, but it's all the same water. So the otters can actually sort of take a dive down and go through a cave system, just chasing bubbles like they like to play, and brush past like a fucking shark.
Are they sea otters or?
Well, there was I saw a moonfish there. So moonfish is, I think, a saltwater creature. So it would have to be sea otters rather than...
I mean, I know river otters occasionally can go into the sea as well. They just don't like it quite as much.
No, I imagine not.
I believe there was a case of this happening a few years ago near San Francisco, where there was an old seawater pool, which is just on the far side of the Golden Gate Bridge. Yeah, it used to be a huge swimming complex, gorgeous, road to Wellville style buildings. But and the water was regularly refreshed, literally by tidal action, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow, that sounds amazing.
They just opened and closed the sluice gates at the right time to just refresh the water.
Incredible.
It was a seawater, and the building it has long since broken down, but some of the ponds and pools are still there. And there was an otter actually made its way in there, and was just gallivanting around the pools.
That's amazing.
Probably a young one who was out on its own to find its own bit of territory, as they're wont to do.
Oh, that's cool. Pleasure Bay is unfortunately swarmed with ocelotters denying...
it makes for great tourist shots.
Absolutely. Just stay the fuck away from there, because they will tear you to shreds.
And Zoe will, of course, be there, doing her trapping and setting. And turns out they've got very nice pelts, ocelotters. And they're really, of course, there's still a bit of a thing on the fur trade.
She calls it pest control, but nevertheless, her preferred method of extermination is guns. That's what we see her doing. She's just busting in there. Oh, you got a cockroach infestation? No problem. I've got this. Guns. What sort of gun is she holding, by the way?
Honestly,
621. What's he holding?
I think they're holding similar guns.
Right.
And it's weird. Maybe I think it's one of the alien guns.
Because we've been waiting for the aliens to arrive. Because of course the story is about David Alexander Smith is in the Cube, a novel of future Boston. The sudden arrival of what we know as the Zorglabian prefab, a giant building, just arrives. Crushing several other buildings. They want
to make sure that it's connected to the city. I mean, they only crush a few of them, but it's kind of basically like a Kowloon walled city just gets dropped into Boston Bay.
It does have a lot of the sort of Kowloon feel of... Yeah. I mean, that doesn't exist anymore, does it?
No, it's been torn down, which is a shame. In the bottom left of the cover, you can see the old Boston part. There's a little bit of church
buildings.
There, and that's kind of like the peninsula that was running out into water, which now ends in the Cube.
Yeah, which does have power, which the rest of the port apparently doesn't. I don't see any lights on.
There's a few lights on the bottom left. Besides, it's light outside. Everything's in the shadow of the building. It's sunrise, I guess.
That's right. See, we come from the Netherlands, which is flat as a mirror, so we never really think about mountains and terrain. Yeah, exactly. But I had that experience while I was staying out in Colorado, in the mountains outside of Denver. I was shooting a wedding there, and I'd done the math, what time is dawn, because I wanted to get some photos of dawn light, and I got up in time, and out I went, and it was still dark, because that's dawn if you can see the horizon.
Right, and
it's another hour or two before it makes it over the next fucking mountain. So,
yes, and it's like especially like when you're in Edinburgh or something, and you're like walking down the street, and you like lean over the low wall, which is here for some reason, and then the next street over is down there 10 meters lower, and you're like,
oh yeah,
two parallel streets not being at the same level is a completely alien concept for us over here.
Yes.
It's
I love Edinburgh, though. Like, it's a fantastic city.
Yeah.
We have some excellent friends out there. I forget what I once knew what the nickname of Edinburgh was, but I do know what the nickname of Boston is, or one of the nicknames is the City of Notions, which I think Zoe kind of represents, because she sees this thing arrive. And, like, okay, so the revelation, there is alien life out there, like there is an intergalactic community, there is some kind of contact being made, that's what's all over the news, but she sees fucking opportunity knocks. Yes, exactly. We've got the next thing, immediately petitioning for squatters' rights, as mentioned on the back cover blurb. She finds a way inside before even the Zorglabian aliens are.
She's out there in her little Zoe Diak. Making her way across the water.
Yes, just fucking shooting oceloters in the head as she's driving past, which is her
pulling them out with a net, or having muskbat swoop over the water and like pick them right out,
murking them in the back of the head. Oh, it's such a brutal book for someone who's supposedly a reverse zoologist.
Well, you have to like kill your darlings, I believe. Or maybe that's a writer thing, not a general scientist.
Yes, she's one of those reverse scientists too.
Yes. As soon as she makes her way over and does her first little investigation of the place, not actually noticing the fact that the place is, I mean, she's trying to claim squatters' rights. Yeah. But it's already kind of occupied.
It is a bit.
Because it turns out that the Zorgblastians are...
Zorglabians.
Sorry, Zorglabians.
You named these back at the... you read this name in I think it's from our first book, from Aliens in Space.
Oh, Zorglabians. Oh, okay. So our... working on their dumping practices, avoiding the import tariffs. Basically what they're doing is like they're dropping off their alien slums. Like the Kowloon Walled City parallel was actually quite astute.
Like prefabricated housing designed for low-income aliens, right?
And they figure out that like there's no import tariffs on those on Earth, and they drop them right there.
Your problem now.
Yep.
Now, of course, this being Boston, which is a forward thing. I kind of appreciate that David Alexander Smith didn't include any of those particular, like there's no specific shibboleths. There's no one called fucking Sacageur and then figure out how you spell that, or the other way around. I mean, when you
that would be funny. That would be funny. A reverse shibboleth is like you say a word. Like I'm going to tell you a word and you have to write it down, and if you get it wrong we execute you.
Oh, that's fantastic. Oh, we can do that with our non-Dutch speaking readers at home, because that was okay, so shibboleth for our readers at home, the word comes from the Bible, and it's from some refugees from a war. We're crossing a river, and the bridge was guarded by the winners of the war, and they wanted to kill any of the survivors from the other side, and so they would show them a piece of parchment with the name of a place written on it, and depending on how they pronounced it, they would kill them or not. And that's a literal town named Shibboleth, and how you pronounce it.
And there's plenty of real life examples, like in the Netherlands. Both sides in the war, the English used Scheveningen. It's like try to either get a German infiltrator or an English infiltrator to pronounce that right.
Yes,
and like both sides used it. Yeah,
and even before the Second World War, the last king of Friesland, a proud province up north, where they speak a distinct language related to Dutch and English. This king, his army was more of a junta. They were more of a roving band of guerrilla. Is what they were doing, and they would burst into town, and they would break into someone's house, and they would force like the man of the house to read this note, and if they could say it correctly, then they knew they were frees and they were fine. Otherwise they'd be killed. And the note said, "Butterbrei en green cheese." Which, to an English-speaking person, is much more understandable. Butter bread and green cheese. Yeah, but very hard to understand for a Dutch-speaking person.
I mean, and there are non-verbal shibboleths as well. I believe they.
What?
In Islamic countries, it's like basically the way you hold your hands while praying. is also a big indication. It's like,
Oh, wow.
I think it's whether you hold them palms forward or palms out. It's like the saluting. Like, do you salute with your palm down or with your palm forward? Again, another one from World War II.
Oh, yeah. Like the American salute is with the palm toward your cheek and your hand held diagonally.
And the German one is with your palm forward. Yeah.
And the British one as well. Do you know why that is?
Oh, no?
That resembles the gesture of a knight with a helmet
Opening their visor, yes.
Right, and you lift it up, and then you point your palm forward. That
makes sense.
And
of course, like as we see in Inglourious Bastards, where he orders the
yes, that's right.
Where he orders the
three
beers, and instead of holding up his thumb and 2 fingers, he holds up 3 fingers, or the other way around. I can't remember which one it is.
The middle 3 fingers, and the German 3 is the thumb, and the first 2. Yeah, that's right.
So there's loads of those.
Oh yeah, there's another one. Like I once successfully recognized someone from Orlando because I asked him.
They did the Disney point.
They did the Disney point, that's right, where they point with either their whole hand or with 2 fingers, because in Disneyland they're taught not to point with 1 finger because there are certain cultures in which that's
an impolite gesture.
Yeah, and like the full hand point is always fine. Oh, one of my friends had this fantastic book. Wow, we're never going to get around to this actual book, but this is so fucking great. So it was a book about hand gestures in different cultures, and it explains different hand gestures that you can make and what they mean in different cultures. And it had a table where it took different hand gestures and different associated meanings and different countries. And then for every country, it asked 40 people from that country whether you associate this hand gesture with that meaning. Right? So do you associate like the flat hand toward you, the bras main, the fat hand in France, as an insulting aggressive, right? And in France, yes. And in Greece, yes. And in Britain, no, it means wait. It doesn't mean fuck you. It means wait.
Yeah, exactly.
Or hold on a second. Like it's not mean. Or like showing the underside. But seeing this table was so cool because you have these related countries like I think Czechia and Slovakia were already separated there, but like closely related countries that agree on a lot of things, and then they don't agree on one particular thing.
So that must be extremely regional then.
Must be extremely regional. Yes, exactly. So I wonder if maybe that's the case. Hey, I'm petitioning for another Segway award here. For like in Boston, is the pointing of the gun, does that maybe mean something different?
It could be
than we do. Is that maybe more of a like an affectionate like hand?
Like finger guns, except like this being Boston, they use real guns. It's like, hey, you're guns. Cool when you point a gun at someone
with the finger like on the trigger and on the trigger guard. Like,
well, speaking of that, like I noticed the difference between Muskbat's gun and Zoe's. Muskbat's doesn't have a trigger guard.
Yes, I imagine that's because of the giant claw and how much time it would take him to thread that claw through
That makes sense. You know, like maybe that's just like an extreme version. Like finger guns is like you're cool. Like gun is actually you're really cool. Gun with the trigger on the finger is like you better trust me.
With the what on the what? What did you say? With the trigger on the figure.
Trigger on the figure. Yes, that sounds like unsafe gun practices. But yeah, maybe.
Well, you would know as an expert, and like. The expertise is the issue at hand because Zoe Loggist, she does successfully infiltrate this prefab sort of slum that's been dumped here.
She basically climbs on top, sits there on top of it, and tries to claim squatters' rights. So she's sitting triumphantly on the big gate leading into the thing when the Massport authorities people show up and go like, "Oh, this is illegally parked here," and so like, and that's when she realized she's made a mistake. It's like, "This is mine," and you go like, "Well, you're not allowed to leave it there," and then she's like, "Oh." Didn't think of that.
Yeah. At this point, also the Zoglabians are like broadcasting their message of disdain toward the Earth, like your problem now, you touched it last, which Zoe sort of sees as an opportunity, like claiming responsibility for what ultimately turns out to be a huge mega community of aliens who, in their own cultures, are like lower skilled workers, but. These are spacefaring civilizations of incredible advancement, and so arriving here on this comparatively primitive planet,
they all have this like issue of like, oh, we've been like bled dry for water and oxygen recently, and we can't really do anything, and our skills aren't really in demand. And then she starts to find out like the things that she knows. And maybe that's where Muskbat's gun's coming from. It was, it's probably one of the aliens ones, and hers. I mean. Okay, it kind of looks alien as well, because I can't imagine who would like design iron sights like her on that gun. But
it sort of looks like a rook from a chessboard.
It does a bit,
from a Lord of the Rings Mordor chessboard.
I mean,
rook.
It looks like someone had explained to them how gun sights work, but not actually ever seen a picture of it.
All right, well, to our readers at home, how would you explain how gun sights work, right? So
You've got a front sight and the rear sight.
Yep.
And the front sight is just a little post, and the rear side is a bar with a gap in it, and the gun's aligned if the post fills the gap.
Okay,
and that's
well,
kind of what
that
you have here.
actually
You've got like a post and a gap, and
it's so offset as well.
that's what I mean. It's like she's clearly pointing roughly, let's call it artistic license and be done with it.
Well, she's not even looking down the sights. Like she's holding it at, at chest
clearly not.
height.
Yeah.
And certainly Muskbat 621 is. I mean, he's kind of shooting from the literally.
I mean,
from the hip. That's about as
he's
high
more
as
or less
it
used to like pointing his gun wherever she's pointing it. I mean, it's like he's just
Oh,
like
yeah,
I mean, he's like
yeah.
fairly intelligent for a muskbat. It's
Yeah.
like mimicry. He's like, oh, guns go there. Okay, guns go there.
Yeah, oh yeah, that makes him a bit of an amplifier. He's less of a liability than the hyena or the chihuahua or the ocelot.
Well, clearly more intelligent too.
And so this community of comparatively extremely highly skilled, extremely valuable alien arrivals, like they're being beset on all sides by the Massachusetts Port Authority and instructed to leave, which they have no ability to do because the cube doesn't have
propulsion. It's just been dropped there, and they're like, hey, we're here to stay.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
What are you going to do?
And so it's Zoe who, because this is the city of notions, she has an idea that can actually make this work out. So acquiring some weapons, she stands up to the port authority. She holds them at bay, like.
Leading the fish pier riots into Boston City proper, where the aliens promptly get lost because they can't deal with a non-grid street structure.
Yes, that's right. I remember that about Boston.
It's spaghetti.
Well, it's European.
I was going to say to us Europeans,
it makes complete sense.
Yeah,
it has a center, and it has a radius and spoke and wheel structure, and it's not just a fucking a structure of rectangles, much like the cube. And so at the height of the violence that erupts in Boston over the arrival of the cube, she resolves the issue by declaring that this is not a squat. And it's not like an alien incursion. It is that real estate paradox that is at once horrifying and desired, that nightmare and jewel of the real estate empire. It is a timeshare.
Oh.
In the proper tradition of her profession, it is a reverse timeshare. So instead of being able to live in a certain house that's in a certain place a certain amount of time, that house is now going to be on your planet for a certain amount of time.
It turns into a bit of a cultural thing. It becomes a popular place for Bostonians to visit. It develops its own little thing. I mean, they brought their own entertainment. They have this wonderful band called the Dropship Murphys.
Yes.
Which manages to draw some local currency into the cube's economy.
They're fucking great. I'm such a fan of the Dropship Murphys.
They manage. It turns into a more of a beneficial situation to both sides.
Yes, isn't that the spirit of Boston? Like, take what you got and make do.
Also get colonized and make do.
Okay, no, that is kind of super duper true.
There's a little bit of historical mirroring in here. I think Mr. Smith was definitely trying to make some historical parallels here to the way.
Oh dear, and I was sort of swept away by the colonialist fancies, and maybe
I'm not going to call Zoe a Pocahontas, but there's, I mean, with her animal companion. I mean, the Disney version.
Oh yes, the Disney version, not the real version.
Oh God,
of the 12-year-old slave bride
no,
who was. And now that we've brought the readers down just enough, I'm kind of curious about the future novels of future Boston, where, I mean, where's it?
I think the sequel's called Lobster's Revenge.
And so we have to see what in the future Zoe Loggist does now that there's all of these
alien incursion.
This alien incursion, what's that going to do for her freelance exterminating or her reverse zoology?
Well, I assume there's going to be more species to reverse zoologize into the environment, and I mean, I think she's looking at a healthy career.
So how are we going to rate this book?
Oh, that's going to be a difficult one.
So no, we've got a cube. We need a cube number. So a third power number, 3 to the third, 27. Is it that easy?
Why 3 to the third?
Well, it can be 4 to the third, and then it's.
I mean, a cube technically has six sides,
4 times 4,
8 corners, How much was it? 12 vertices? 4 and 4?
4 in the front, 4 in the back, and then 4 connecting the... Wait, are vertices the lines between,
Yes.
or are they the points? What are
Sorry,
the
you're
points
right.
called?
No, you're right. So let's give it... I mean, 6 out of 12 is a bit low, so let's give it 8 out of 12.
8 out of 12. So 6 out of 8 is even better, isn't it?
6 out of 8 is even better. You think, okay, I'll give it 8 out of 12, you give it 6 out of 8.
That's right. And then the average of that is too
Higher
much
maths.
for us to... Yes, exactly. I thought it was great. I thought Alexander Smith did a great job with In the Cube. It was a wonderful mirror for modern society. And speaking of mirrors, can I manage then? Yeah. If you have reflected on today's episode and you would like to let us know what you thought, if you look down at your podcasting device, you should be seeing an opportunity to maybe leave a review or a couple of stars. And otherwise, you can do that on your service of choice. You can also write to us at covermyasscast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. And if you have a particular book that you think we ought to review but not read, then please do let us know, because we'd love to hear from you. Now, what do we have in store for our readers next week?
Yes, next week's book is by Lewis Grizzard. It's called Don't Bend Over in the Garden, Granny. You know them taters got eyes.
That about covers it. Thank you for joining us at Cover My Ass, where baffling books are reviewed but not read by yours truly. My name is Kaki.
And I'm Kay, and remember,
we only judge a book by its cover. Okay, now quickly, we need to take shelter because I think the storm is getting worse.
Yeah,
Come here.
Into the hebdomadary pen.
In the hebdomadary
I don't
pen.
want to sit in the pen with the hebdomadaries.
Look, it's safer in there.
I would rather seek shelter under the large picture books.
Ooh, is that an option? Oh, that's great. Yes.
It's like...
Fuck these hebdomadaries.
I think there are a couple of...
Oh no, this one's everyone's poops. I don't want this book.
All my friends are dead is over here.
This is worse.
I mean, dead friends or poop, your choice.
That's no choice. We're going to the hebdomadary. Come here, take my hand. I'm going to lead us to safety. Hebdomadary paddock, here we go.